All right, good evening and welcome to the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. First, I want to thank Reverend Hollerith and the other folks at the National Cathedral for hosting tonight's event. I also want to thank D.C.'s Mayor Muriel Bowser for her vision and leadership that has brought together faith leaders from the district and around the country to discuss their experiences in the aftermath of recent violent attacks on our religious institutions. I'm joined here this evening by Chris Rodriguez from D.C.'s Homeland Security and Emergency Management Agency, Reverend Thomas Bowen, D.C.'s Director of Religious Affairs, and the Dean of the Washington National Cathedral, Reverend Randy Hollerith. We're also honored to welcome several faith leaders from communities outside of our region that have persevered through tragedy. Leaders that were witnessed to cowardly acts of gun violence, targeting their congregations and claiming the lives of close to 50 innocent victims. Leaders that have worked tirelessly to help heal their communities following these cowardly acts. So later this evening, we will be joined by Eric Manning, the senior pastor of the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Charleston, South Carolina, Alan Hausman, the vice president at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Frank and Sherry Pomeroy of the First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs, Texas. It's my understanding that this is the first time that these faith-based leaders have made a united appearance to discuss lessons learned from their tragedies. So I want to personally thank them for being here and sharing their experiences with Washington, D.C. In a moment, we'll have the opportunity to join district residents, community faith leaders, and members of various district government agencies to listen and to collaborate on steps needed to become an even more resilient and safe community. Here in Washington, D.C., we're always exploring ways to expand partnerships, strengthen collaboration and ties with our community to achieve a safer and a stronger Washington, D.C. The city's Interfaith Preparedness and Advisory Group is made up of the Metropolitan Police Department, the Mayor's Office of Religious Affairs, and the district's Homeland Security and Emergency Management Agency. The goal of this group is to enhance security efforts related to hate-based threats and crimes. In Washington, D.C., we say that diversity and tolerance of our residents is what makes D.C. vibrant, welcoming, and exceptional. But we too here in the district have experienced an increase in bias-related crimes since 2015, a trend we are working to reverse through collaborations like the Interfaith Preparedness and Advisory Group. Since it was established, the group has worked to enhance our service to the faith leaders and communities across the district by providing focused outreach efforts, particularly by MPD's Special Liaison Unit, to DC's religious institutions on a continuous basis and immediately following any attack across the globe. This helps these communities to mitigate fear. Also by providing increased specialized resources available to support victims, including a dedicated victim specialist. Also by providing more intentional and sophisticated hate crime coordination. By providing critical information in multiple languages to reassure our immigrant communities. And lastly, by providing our continuous reminder for our community to continuously remain vigilant. If they see something, we ask them to say something. We believe that one of our primary ways to prevent terrorist attacks in our city is through cooperation between law enforcement and the community. We ask our community to be our eyes and ears and to play an active role in reporting suspicious behavior or activity. We believe that it is most likely that an individual in the community will be the first to notice something out of the ordinary. Our philosophy is if those suspicions can be immediately passed on to law enforcement, it gives us the opportunity to examine, evaluate, and if necessary, to act so that we can all be safe. Thank you. I'm now going to ask Director Rodriguez from District's Homeland Security and Emergency Management Agency to come to the podium. Chris.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chief Newsham, and thank you to the officers of the Metropolitan Police Department who every day put their lives on the line to make sure that the residents of the District of Columbia are safe and secure. As Chief Newsham said, I'm Chris Rodriguez, Director of the District of Columbia's Homeland Security and Emergency Management Agency. And in recent years, we've seen a spate of violence against houses of worship around the world, not only here in the United States. These attacks have highlighted the need for closer cooperation between the faith community and public safety communities. Now, earlier this year, Mayor Bowser created the Interfaith Preparedness and Advisory Group, or IPAG, which is a joint effort between the Homeland Security Emergency Management Agency, the Metropolitan Police Department, and the Mayor's Office of Religious Affairs. As Chief Newsham said, the IPAG is a platform for the faith-based community here in D.C. to report and exchange information on security threats, vulnerabilities, protective measures, and other best practices. We meet once a quarter, and tonight is our second meeting. This evening, also as the Chief mentioned, we welcome faith leaders from across the country whose congregations have been the targets of mass violence and have experienced the unthinkable. And I would like to thank Reverend Manning, Mr. Hausman, Reverend Pomeroy, and Mrs. Pomeroy for being here with us tonight. Now, these leaders have come all the way from South Carolina, Texas, and Pennsylvania to discuss how their congregations responded to and recovered from senseless acts of violence. And our goal as a district and as a public safety community is to learn from them so that we can better help the faith community here in the nation's capital become safer, stronger, and more resilient. I'd like to now turn it over to Reverend Bowen from the Mayor's Office of Religious Affairs.
Well, thank you, Director Rodriguez, and thank you to everyone who is here. My name is Thomas Bowen, and I'm the Director of the Mayor's Office of Religious Affairs. I want to first thank the Washington National Cathedral, Bishop Buddy, Dean Hollerith, and also Reverend Hamlin for opening their doors on this evening. I want to thank them for their leadership, not only nationally, but locally. I want to thank them for their participation in the Mayor's Interfaith Council. 2 years ago, Mayor Bowser asked MPD, the Office of Human Rights in my office, to put together a protocol to respond to hate and bias-related crimes in our city. Since that time, we've also been joined by the Office of LGBTQ Affairs. Simply put, we want to ensure those who have been victimized that hate has no place in Washington, D.C. This is a message that Mayor Bowser continues to preach each and every time she has the chance and opportunity. And as Director Rodriguez has said, this year, Mayor Bowser expanded that by introducing to us the Interfaith Preparedness and Advisory Group. You know, it's amazing what you can get done when you don't care who gets the credit. But Director Rodriguez and Chief Newsham have done a wonderful job, and we understand that oftentimes when incidents occur, like on a Sabbath at Tree of Life, there are individuals here in Washington, D.C. who are also impacted. For as Dr. King, who once stated, that whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. And that simply is why we're here on this evening. I will now turn it over to Bishop Buddy and Dean Hollerith.
Thank you all. My name is Randy Hollerith. I'm the Dean of Washington National Cathedral. On behalf of Bishop Buddy and I, it's an honor to have you all here tonight for this event. We are thrilled to be able to host this gathering. As a cathedral, as a house of prayer for all people, it's very important for us, first and foremost, that we protect all those who come within our doors, whether they're visitors or worshipers or staff, or most especially the children who are up on the top of this hill day in and day out and are in and out of the cathedral, and their safety is paramount for us. At the same time, we are a house of prayer for all people. We're welcoming and having our doors as open as possible, and welcoming the stranger and the visitor is equally and deeply as important to us as our safety. And so, like many houses of worship, trying to find the appropriate balance between those two things is always a difficult place to be in this day and age. So I'm glad that we are hosting this event, that we can learn so much from so many others who have experienced terrible tragedies, but have the opportunity to come together to share what we've learned in a graceful way that can benefit us all for the future.
Speaking on behalf of the Diocese of Washington and the houses of worship here in the District of Columbia, I would just simply say that every time there is an incidence of hatred and violence against a house of worship anywhere in the world, we all fall to our knees and pray for those who are victimized by such crimes. Of course, our leaders wonder how they can prepare themselves and be a place, ensure the safety of their people. When we rise from our knees, we must then, as God calls us, take action. Part of that action is working in collaboration with the mayor's office, with the police department and other authorities for our safety. We must also speak and recognize that the instances of violence against houses of worship are part of a larger epidemic of gun violence in our country that affect the people on our streets, that affect the children in our schools, that affect people in their places of worship. And so we add our voices as respectfully and as clearly as we can to our elected officials in Washington and throughout the country that we also need to put an end to the epidemic of gun violence by ensuring that these weapons of destruction are not easily accessible to those who wish to do harm. Thank you.
We'll take any questions if you have any.
Could you talk a little bit about how the meeting's going to go, what you are going to list takeaways, how will it work?
So as we said earlier, this will be the second meeting of the Mayor's Interfaith Preparedness and Advisory Council. We'll have members of that council, of the group here tonight, and it'll be a facilitated discussion with the individuals, with the faith leaders from the congregations that we mentioned. So there'll be a facilitated discussion in terms of what they experienced, how their communities reacted, responded, and how they continue to recover from those terrible acts of violence.
Do you think you'll have something you could put together for faith organizations sort of around the country after this, perhaps? Sort of like best practices or how to help heal?
Well, under the mayor's leadership, we established this group as a way to create those deliverables, products, resources for the faith communities. Our hope is that those lessons learned, those resources can be made available to congregations outside of the District of Columbia, and certainly in the region here and across the country. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.